Hello, welcome to the Great International Education and Schools Fair, and I'm delighted to introduce you to our host today, Jayne Constantinis. Over to you, Jayne.
Thank you, Fiona. Indeed, let me also wish you a very warm welcome to this month-long programme of events, activities and content to help you navigate the currently rather challenging landscape of education and relocation. I'm Jayne Constantinis and I'm delighted to be your host for the next hour, and I'm also going to be popping up at various points during the month. In a moment, we're going to hear from four guests. We're going to hear from Alessandra Gnudi. She's a relocation professional and has been for around 20 years. She's an Italian living in London with grown-up children, and she's very, very experienced in helping families come and work and study in this country. Alessandra, welcome. Carl Morris is head of Carfax Education and the principal of Carfax College in Oxford, and he's also a highly experienced tutor. He's going to have some very interesting perspectives as well. Ruth Holmes is a journalist and writer and has worked for many years on Relocate Global and Think Global People magazines. She writes a lot about education. She's also a parent of three school-age children. And Nicky Stone is an executive coach and a facilitator, an expert in learning and development, and she's going to be very involved in the fair over the next month. She's going to be leading a number of sessions. So welcome to all of you, and look forward to hearing your perspectives in a few moments. But Fiona, we must begin by, first of all, thanking you for putting together this fantastic programme of events. But I'd like to ask you, what was your inspiration for creating the fair?
Well, I had a bit of a light bulb moment. Education and schools have always been topics of keen interest to our audience, which is parents, employers and global mobility professionals. And indeed, the education and schools section online and in the magazines are very popular indeed. And then I was also very impressed since the pandemic that schools have really risen to the challenge of the pandemic. I mean, particularly the international schools who were first impacted, were very quick to be able to get their school curriculums online and being able to deliver education online in blended learning, hybrid learning, or however, and learnt from each other, but were also very generous in sharing their knowledge of what they'd learned to other schools in their local communities around the world, and also very quick to come up with the COVID safety measures, etc., when schools were allowed to operate again. And then as a publication for many years and online, we've covered the admission cycle. And of course, September, the new term, and schools were actually back. It was all thinking, oh, well, this is wonderful. But then a lot of families were not where they should be at the time. And a lot of schools, even who were sort of out the doors with admissions, had got places now. And it will be the admission cycle when people are really looking for places for the following year, the academic year 21-22. And here they were with places, and parents and employers looking for places. So I thought, well, we could do something, we can match them. So let's do a virtual admissions fair, which is open to everyone. So we encouraged as many schools as possible, and those schools that are in our International Education Guide and UK Guide, to send us their virtual tour videos, and be part of a whole fair where people from around the world, families, employers and relocation professionals can dip in and understand where there are places now and what to do about applying for places in the future, and also to plan for employers, international assignments and families for next moves wherever they may be going.
So you've mentioned virtual tours. Give us, if you can, a snapshot of the kind of events and the sort of content that you've got planned over the next 4 weeks?
Yes, well, as well as those virtual tours and videos, we've got all sorts of speakers who are going to talk about not only the international education and school sector, which is hugely growing. So, for example, we've got a very good panel discussion with school leaders and LEK Consulting, who's an education consulting practice, about what schools have done to push through the technology and share what they're doing in terms of learning with school leaders. So that will be a great opportunity to understand how schools are responding. And then we've got, say, for example, on Tuesday, we've got International School of London have got a wonderful session for parents about bringing up multilingual or bilingual children, so which parents from around the world can dip into and understand how they can support their children both at home and help them look for schools that offer native languages, for example. And then we've got a thrilling and exciting event at the end of the week. We've been very fortunate to have Dr. Anisha Abrahams, who is a child paediatrician and teen health expert, and she's written a book about teens. So that's great for health and well-being of young people. So for parents, there's a great opportunity to discover how to bring up teens successfully, and I've been through that, so I'm sure there'll be interest. And then we move through the second week. We're having a lot on transition and change, co-education and versus single-sex education, as well as topics, STEM, science, creative, all those sorts of areas. And then third week, we cover different countries and regions, so you can drill down on education specifically in regional areas. And then the fourth week we'll recap, but we'll also look at higher education and careers options and start the discussion going with schools and employers about what the future workplace might look for. And then in the middle of the week, next week, we have a Think Women event, which is at 5:00. So anybody from the audience can participate in that. And I know Ruth's been a keen advocate and supporter of that initiative.
Goodness me, a wealth of content. And it's not just the live events either. Tell us about the other resources that are available.
Yes, well, we've got plenty of written articles on the website already in our education school section, but we've pulled everything together in a great schools fair section, so it's easy there to get hold of. And all the articles that are included in our Guide to International Education and Schools and UK Guide are there for people to read and enjoy, and they can also download the ebook. So there's already a lot of content, and we would appeal to people who would like to write in and provide some editorial. We'd be very pleased to receive that over the next month. And indeed, the schools are contributing response to COVID and the new innovations that they've been discovering, to which we will publish early in the new year in a special supplement to support the guide. So indeed, and then people like Ruth and our other journalists will be writing daily, and there's a weekly catch-up on an e-newsletter.
So people perhaps who've tuned in now and are thinking, oh, I wonder if this is for me. What would you say people will actually get from all of this amazing content?
Well, I think what they'll get is a really enlightening overview of what opportunities there are available wherever you're going in the world, how to select a school that meets your individual family requirements and that of the individual child, and the curriculums that may be suitable for you and your family, and how you can move possibly to your next assignment and can be able to continue the education system and indeed go to higher education. And for also those families who want to send their children to a particular country because of the quality of the education or their preferred curriculum, there'll be information on things like boarding as well and how to support children when they're away from home.
And one of the things that struck me as I've been looking into all of the content is how very, very practical it all is. It's not just talking, really, really clear guidance for people. Share with us, if you would, a couple of other highlights, perhaps. I know you've got some very illustrious speakers lined up.
Yes, well, we've got, for example, we've got Clarissa Farr, who wrote the book The Making of Us, Why Schools Matter, Why Schools Matter. And she'll be talking about why, in particular, in her experience at St Paul's, as High Mistress of St Paul's School, why the approach she had developed with educating girls. And then that will open the discussion for parents and to talk about a single-sex education or a co-education. And then individuals from different countries will obviously shine real insight into their country. So we've got, for example, Vietnam, which you'll know is a fast-growing region in Asia, how schools have developed and are developing quickly, and the calibre of schools there, and the very vibrant school communities which are very used to welcoming families into the region, and indeed how they've coped with the COVID pandemic and also with fast change in that region.
And of course, it's not just about listening to experts, is it? You're very keen over the course of the whole month for people to get involved, to be able to ask questions and to be able to share their experiences, their perspectives and their expertise. How is that going to happen?
Well, I hope it's going to happen through facilitation with people like Nicky, who we hope is going to manage to draw in a crowd and help them to engage with each other using platforms like Zoom so that they can get the discussions going and learn and share from each other. Also discuss, like the platforms like Zoom so that they can get the discussions going and learn and share from each other. And also discuss, like the teens, for example, teen health issues, all those sorts of things that really matter to families, but also supporting with mental health, I think, as well, and coping as a family with working from home during lockdown, managing careers. All those sorts of things are hugely impacting on people's work-life balance. And now where a lot of countries are going back into a second sort of lockdown phase, particularly in Europe, then it's how do you keep resilient? So Paul Williamson, who, as many of you will know, has worked with us on workshops on resilience, and he did a wonderful one on music, knowing the score. Those sort of sessions are open to everyone to help them address what's going on now and how, if they're the working parent, they can go back to their team and give them some support, especially if they're families.
It's a word that you've used a couple of times already, the word community. And I think there is a real sense that this is about a community, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, I know when we had our Relocate virtual awards, which you kindly hosted, I mean, that YouTube video of the whole event had live award winners doing some wonderful pieces to illustrate what they've achieved. And that's had over 9,000 YouTube hits. So that is, yes, I mean, I know when we had our Relocate virtual awards, which you kindly hosted, I mean, that YouTube video of the whole event had live award winners doing some wonderful pieces to illustrate what they've achieved. And that's had over 9,000 YouTube hits. So that is a community. I remember you saying to me, that is a community. If there are that many people around the world who share an interest in education and schools, and as a parent expatriate community, as well as the employer community who want to nurture that talent. It's about sharing ideas and sharing knowledge and resources, as well as in emerging market areas where schools are developing all the time, to support those new local schools which are doing so well and growing and supporting the local populations with huge technological innovations and a great love of learning and fast-paced knowledge. So that's the future. And also encouraging this sense of global mindedness, which I think this global mobility community, which is very wide reaching, has really got a sense of cultural awareness as well, knowledge of languages and about good communication skills, so that young people hopefully will be, as well as their particular specialisms they go into, also be emotionally intelligent, which is what employers say they want.
Well, Fiona, thank you at this point for your boundless energy and enthusiasm and your ability to create something as fantastic as this. Let's bring in our guests who've been patiently waiting there. Alessandra, Carl, Ruth and Nicky, thank you very much for giving us your time this afternoon. And I wonder if I could begin by asking you each to think, what is your perspective on this global situation and the implications for families, parents and employers? And I wonder if Carl, I could start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's probably an understatement to say that this has been quite a challenging time for everyone. And even in just the 6 months or so since schools went into lockdown, we've seen the face of education change quite drastically. And I think that we have to applaud the efforts of many schools, both private and state schools, who have put together incredible programs at such accelerated speed. I mean, no one expected to have to move their entire class online at such short notice. But I think, for me, coming from this kind of the point of view of a school and an educator, what is quite incredible that I think will come out of this is the change in attitudes towards education. We always saw in Carfax a enormous reluctance towards online education, but since we started this term in September, we've put together a variety of programs that might be fully in person, blended, part online, and this increased flexibility in learning, I think, will benefit parents, students, and everyone, especially in a globally moving community. I think it will allow people to receive their education in Oxford when they're actually traveling abroad for whatever their personal circumstances might be. And the investment in EdTech, I think, will be a big thing as well. I think that will be accelerated during this time, and we'll see when we come out of this situation, there'll be some incredible, and there already are some incredible resources available online.
Interesting. Alessandra, what do you think the impact is on families and parents?
I think, as Carla said, there's a lot of uncertainty, and this is definitely a different world. So I think parents are not sure about what to do next if they are offered a relocation, an assignment abroad. And I see that a lot of people continue with their life as if, nothing has happened. And this is really important, especially with children, keeping a routine, a sort of normality. And but the key word here is flexibility, is staying flexible and just adjust to what the situation is going to be in a few months' time, so accordingly, and then reassess the situation as you're getting closer to that to the date of the assignment, but really keeping a normality and staying flexible is really, really important. And another thing that I want to just mention is the incredible effort that all schools have put on to really address this online learning and education. It's just remarkable. And I think there's going to be a lot of that that we will benefit from in the future. Whenever we go back to normal schooling, I think we will have learned a lot of lessons, and a lot of this online education could be implemented somehow also in, in future programs.
Ruth, what do you think, or do you think we will have learned some really valuable lessons once this is all over?
I think absolutely, Jayne. I echo what Alessandra and Carl say as well, that it's going to be about flexibility. I'm wearing two hats in my approach to this, as a parent and also as a journalist, kind of writing about the world of work and the impact of lockdowns and remote working and kind of the impact on career progression and inclusion and those kind of aspects. But yeah, there's a sense of, okay, here we go again. We're kind of expecting it. And, schools have absolutely done, a brilliant job of pastorally and kind of technically enabling kind of online learning. So in a way, there's a sense of preparation, but there's just how we're dealing with uncertainty, both on an individual, family kind of education level. My son is doing his GCSEs. He's meant to be sitting his mocks in a few weeks' time. So he's having to kind of navigate all of this. So, we've all, I think it's fair to say we've all achieved a lot. We've got a lot on our plates, but there is a lot of information out there. And events like this are brilliant for kind of sharing experiences and knowing that none of us are alone in it. We can do this. This is preparation for the future, basically. So positive that the good things will come out of this.
Yeah. Nicky, what about you? Can we do this?
Yeah, well, I think we have to believe, don't we, that we can. And I think, as everyone said, I suppose we've never known so much uncertainty. Everything we thought we knew about everything in our lives, from how we'd work, from what we'd look for in a school. When I was looking for schools for my kids a couple of years ago, it didn't occur to me that I need to think, how well will the school adapt in a global pandemic? Will they be able to convert everything online in a few months?
About that? How strange.
I don't know why I wasn't planning ahead, but it didn't cross my mind. In the work that I do, I'm teaching adults, but, we, a bit like Carl said, about the last 10 years, I've been trying to do more workshops virtually, and the interest has been minimal. And then something happened this year and suddenly everyone was up for it. And I think what is interesting is we can adapt. And although it's not the same as being face to face, I think what we've seen in education and in all sorts of areas is that if we remember the things that really matter to us as humans, if we still connect with one another, as we've said here about creating that community, then that's for me what's going to make this work. And what's been really refreshing for me is in the education that I've been doing it just, with adults. Actually, people have been so delighted to still be able to learn, still be able to come together. And I've been amazed, actually, how much because I love standing up and facilitating in front of a group of people. And I've been thinking, well, what's that going to be like over Zoom all day, every day? But actually, I've been amazed how much we can get the conversation going still. And I think you'll see that in these workshops over the following month. And obviously, hopefully you've seen it with some of the other things that are going on, that we can still do things. And with Zoom, you've got small breakout rooms that you can still have intimate conversations and make things happen. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to connect and support one another. But we have to, we can do it. We can.
We can do it. It's funny you say about looking at different perspective. My daughter suddenly announces that she really loves going to school. I think a lot of children suddenly are valuing what they get from going to school. And of course, it's not just about the learning. Any other personal perspectives on how you as a family or as individuals have been dealing with everything?
I mean, for us, what I've really known, I've got two small children, a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. So only one of them is in school anyway, the other one in nursery. But when we were locked down, what was really interesting for me was that how it kind of made us more insular and looking into one another, and how much the kids absolutely loved that. And for them, it was very positive. And when they had the chance to go back to school, there was positives in that as well. And, she was more my daughter was more ready. But I found it really interesting that what for us was like that sort of like frustration of not being able to do so much, actually, two parents being at home and me not commuting so much and everything, actually, for them, there was like, ooh, we get loads of time with our parents. And actually just coming back, I mean, I feel like sort of family values, but coming back to what, being together and spending time together and how important that is, and just refocusing on the family, as Alessandra said earlier, I think for me it's been really massive and a pleasant surprise that actually we've been very lucky. And I know lots of children have really suffered, but for us, my children have flourished, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, wait till they're teenagers. They won't be going, family time.
And I think we had lovely to hear that experience. And I think for us, a family of 5, all working from home, 3 different schools, 3 different technical setups, 2 adults on kind of constant Zoom calls. And I'm not going to lie, I found it really difficult. And but we got through it. Life is full of challenges and things, but I will be more prepared, this time, if we get that notification that the schools are closing. But yeah, it's all a very steep learning curve, and it'll be fun.
What's been your personal perspective and experience of it, Carl?
I think, well, for me, we have offices kind of all over the world, and one of my big goals is to create a sense of community across a kind of global divide. And I think when we all went into lockdown, we realized just how valuable that sense of community not is just between our people who aren't in the same country, but within a single office. And I think I found that quite challenging, not kind of being in with the team every day and talking to people and having that opportunity to kind of bounce around ideas and just communicate with other people. I mean, it was a bit more of a challenge, I think, through Teams, which is what we were using.
Yeah, and it's often, isn't it, the loss of those casual, informal conversations, the 5-second comment that is made about a piece of work or a project or something, that you're not going to go to the trouble of setting up a call to say that, but you would if you passed somebody by in the office.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I didn't realize quite how much they can spark into a whole project, just a throwaway comment that as you say, you wouldn't bother to call someone up for.
Yeah. Okay, let's think about our audience now. Thank you very much for joining us. And I wonder if I can ask each of you to think of what your top tip or top tips would be for families and parents who are facing all the same challenges that we are, and possibly some additional challenges because they're anticipating a big change in lifestyle. Alessandra, I wonder if you'd begin. Top tips, please.
Top tips in general is to keep an open mind. And we use the word flexible and being, which is really the key here, and being adaptable, because we may have to shift, we may have to do things differently, and we may have to think differently. So really to keep an open mind in all of this, and something good will come out of it. So that's my top tip.
Thank you. Ruth, what about you?
May I just interject, Jay? What would be really useful to hear from some people what their top tips are for finding a school at this time as well, as part of the whole experience. So what's your top tips for selecting a school?
So I was saying to select a school now, my advice would be to gather as much information as possible, to speak to as many people as possible who have some sort of experience or knowledge on a particular location, city, or a particular system, educational system that is of interest, and just try to make up your mind based on all that you have learned, and of course, again, if you can work with somebody who can assist you, and this speaking from a family point of view, that would be really, really beneficial, because sometimes I find the parents have strong opinions as far as schooling, and but I think they really have to again, get some advice, do the research, and keep in mind that their children's inclination and passion. And then again, with the current situation, again, it's good to plan, but it's also good to kind of change your plan if that as is the case.
Carl, would you say in the current climate, people should be approaching this process differently? Or is it really all based on what Alessandra said there, which is intelligence gathering as much as you possibly can?
I think it is about gathering as much information as possible. But I think perhaps one piece of information you might not have thought of a year ago to gather would be what will the school do in the event of a lockdown? What is the online learning program like? And as we said before, schools have put a tremendous effort into making these online programs robust and academically rigorous, but they are all different. And I think they cater to different learning styles, and each student has a different learning style. There are as many learning styles as there are students in the world, and I think it's important perhaps for parents to consider what those students or their children's learning style is, and see how that might match up to a potential lockdown homeschooling program. So that's what I would look out for if I was going to a school at the moment.
That's interesting. Nicky, you were saying that you hadn't considered the whole pandemic thing when you were looking at schools. What other top tips would you offer?
For me, what it's all about, and I think now is the same, for me, what it's all about is thinking, as a couple of you already said, about the needs of your particular child and what specifically they need. So, for example, my eldest daughter is a fairly anxious child. And so actually, as well as thinking about, as Carl said, how are the school going to cope with lockdown? How are they going to put the syllabus online? I'd also say, how are they going to pastorally support the children? How are they going to, create and maintain a sense of community amongst the children when they can't see each other? Especially for me, for young children, that's especially hard. So I think it's something that I was always interested in, but I think I'd be even more interested in that now. This is a very challenging time for the mental health of our children, I think. And some of, doing better than others, but it's a real roller coaster, and this uncertainty is hard for adults, but for children, it's incredibly difficult. And school is one of the places that provides that continuity, stability. So I would be really looking to think about how are they going to support the emotional needs of, and understand the anxiety, and that for some children going back to school after a long gap is going to be woohoo, and for others it's going to be petrifying. Yeah. And how are they supporting that? So,
yeah. Ruth, what about you? One top tip, if you have one? We're going to explore the mental health question in a moment.
Okay, I think, as Alessandra said at the very beginning, do your research. I think that's really important, especially around, as Nicky, you just said, the what ifs. I've got a daughter who is at a boarding school, so I know they've got very rigorous and very well thought out contingency plans in terms of various quarantines and the various bubbles that they're in, and there's all those things to take into consideration that is just clear and easily laid out. So that's something, and also I would say kind of get to know the admissions tutors as well, of the admissions officers of any school that you're interested in. Just, pick the phone up and sound people out and envisage how you want to be living your life on your assignments, and how the school will fit around it, I think, and the values that you have as well. And, ask the parents, ask around, but I think trust your gut instinct really as well, I think is something to bear in mind.
And of course, in terms of intelligence gathering, this programme, Fiona, that you've put together is going to be really invaluable for a lot of people. Let's pick up on Nicky, what you just said then about mental health. What's each of your perspectives on how children generally have been coping with this, and how they might cope as the situation now continues? Alessandra, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that depends really on the age of the children, because I would really protect the young ones. Already they are exposed to, all the media, all the terrible news, and I think they sense that this virus is terrible. So I would really, you know, with young children, I would really be careful when, you know, watching the news or when having a conversation over the phone with somebody, because they you know, they can hear everything. So I would try to protect the little ones. With the older ones, of course, you want to have a conversation and want to just, you know, as a parent, you need to show that, you know, you're not too frightened, that you're not too anxious about it, because also the older children need a reassurance that they are going to go back to their life. I've got older children, and they, you know, they are in that age group where friends are really important, and they can't see friends. And, you know, it's a different, they see a different future, and they're really, really worried as far as the job market goes. I have a son who's has been working for 3 years in an engineering consultancy, and they have announced some redundancies. So he's very worried, and it's kind of a shame that at that age already, he has to worry about that. He just, you know, kind of entered the job market and already has got that perspective. And a younger one who's finishing university next summer, and she's worried that she's not going to find any, you know, any graduate program. So it's, I think, as parent, you have the role of, you know, kind of stay calm, keep calm and carry on. And even, you know, if the children are old enough to understand, you still have to maintain, you know, that level of serenity, if you can.
Yes.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carl, what's been your experience of or observation of how children and young people are coping?
Yeah, I think that as everyone said, that young people have been. I mean, it's an uncertain time, and that's created quite a lot of anxiety. And I think, as Nicky said, that school is often a form of stability for students. And I think when we go back to March, so quickly changing the format of school probably affected quite a lot of students' mental health. It definitely, some of our students definitely struggled. We work with some students who have special educational needs as well, and that presented its own challenges. But I think that then it's the job of the schools and the educators to create that sense of stability again. And I think as people settled into the kind of lockdown homeschooling, that a lot of our students kind of came back, and anxiety levels dropped, and there was a lot less worry towards the end. I think over summer we kind of had that same uncertainty again. Were schools going online? Were we going to be back in person? No one really knew, and I think that caused a bit of worry. But definitely in the first half of this term, students have been, as Nicky said, very happy to actually be back. I mean, it's been great to see so many students excited to be back into school, because I think it is about that. I think what we've realized from this is that school is much more than the academics. It is a sense of community.
Yeah. And Ruth, you alluded to the fact that even within a family, you can have one child who's going woo, going back, and another who is not feeling the same. What's been your observation?
I think it's, you know, really important to be honest about how we're all feeling as a family. Yes, we absolutely need to lead and kind of keep calm and carry on. That's really, you know, it's really important to be the adult, even though you might not necessarily always be feeling that. But we have one child who is so, you know, very, you know, dealt with it all very well, and then the eldest one and the youngest one had the anxiety of starting a new school. So, but again, we just, you know, it's about talking and reassuring, and also bringing in tutors when needed, and just kind of circling out that communication between the school, the child, and obviously as a family, and just, you know, just checking in with them and just spending time and attention, which is, you know, obviously really important in what you do with your family. But I think when we're all remote working, and you do have to make that special time. And my worry is they're having lessons on social media via Zoom, and now they're talking with their friends, they're connecting with their friends that way, which is brilliant. But there is a balance to be struck, and it's, it all evens out, but it is kind of being honest and making those spaces where those concerns can be raised and kind of spoken about. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It is a balance, isn't it? I love Alessandra's idea that we're all serene, rather swan-like. But at the same time, it's important that everybody feels able to voice their anxieties and their concerns, because we can't pretend this stuff isn't happening. Nicky, what about you? You've got little ones. How have they been coping?
As I said, in many ways, pretty well. But I really resonate with some of the things that Alessandra and Ruth had said. I mean, especially the idea about being that adult and providing that, even though we're feeling unsure, being able to admit, well, we don't know what's going to happen and we're not sure if we're going to be able to do that. And it's okay, because we'll find a way around it and we'll do what we need to. And just being able to provide that safety for them, that you can, I just feel that's been so fundamental. And I've seen a lot of families really struggle without the structure of school. And I think just that need for us to, whatever's going on for us inside, try and voice it in a way that feels safe enough for the children. And then, being that adult who can, don't worry, we're going to sort it out. Whatever happens, we can deal with it. We can cope, and just making sure that's aware.
I've also noticed being outside, that certainly helped me as an adult. My young people are in their early 30s now, so when I met, remember what it was like. But for me personally, getting out in the fresh air and doing some walking or a bit of gardening, those sorts of things, and to, I think, encourage children to go out and play and run around, and as a family do outdoor things and get some fresh air. We know medically that really helps people, but it also just sort of shifts the emphasis a bit, doesn't it? And this time of year is sort of in the Europe and UK, we're moving into autumn and changing colours, and, there's all sorts of things you can be doing, looking at bugs and leaves and all sorts of things. Not to mention the sort of Halloween celebrations that have just been going on virtually or whatever. Yeah. So lots of fresh air, I think, is always helpful.
Fiona, I've got a lovely image now of you dragging your 30-year-old children out to the park to look at the lovely leaves and bugs. If you do that, please take a video of it and send it to us.
Yes, I really miss show and tell, I can tell you.
I wanted to pick up on something that Carl said about school being much more than just an educational establishment or process. When families are looking at schools, what specific things should they be considering? What will the clues be that this is going to be an environment that will help their child to thrive? Alessandra, I wonder if you could answer that first.
I think, there's a lot beyond the academic that parents should kind of pay attention to. It's really a lot to think about. Extracurricular activities, what else is offered that could complement the academic program. The community is really, really important. I always say, it's funny to say this now when people cannot see each other in person or are limited in their social interactions. But I think the community is really important because especially with younger children, those parents are going to be very likely, they're going to become your friends because their children are going to be your, kids' best friends. So looking at the community is really, really important. Do you relate to them? Do you like the kind of the atmosphere? And you can sense that by talking to some parents or just visiting the school in action if you can. And of course this is more relevant pre-pandemic, but it's still very important to see the community. And it's not only important for younger children, also for older children, and especially, with teenagers. Those kids are going to be, really, really important for your children. And there's a lot of peer pressure. So you want the peer pressure coming from, the right group of kids. And especially when you are, not involved at all, because at some point children, they don't want the parents to go to school anymore. They don't, you're not there to kind of filter what's going on. So you want to be sure that the community is the right one for you. I mean, I can talk for hours, but maybe the others.
We'd love you to talk for hours, but we have only got about 15 minutes left.
Yeah.
But that word community is so interesting in the current context, isn't it? Because we're all probably, as I am, reading lots of content about mental health, mental well-being, and what are the keys to keeping ourselves in tip-top shape. And one of the key things is community, feeling part of a community. I see, Ruth, that you're nodding to that.
No, definitely. Community is really important, and the school community, and also if you're working on an overseas assignment, the expatriate community and the local community as well. I think school's really important, and as Alessandra said, the extracurricular activities that can be delivered both through a school and kind of externally as well. Helps you become part of a community. But I think in terms of kind of choosing the right school for your child, I think it's obviously it's different now because you can't visit many of them in person. But looking at the online videos on the schools, the Relocate Global International Schools Fair, all those videos on there, you get a real sense of what how the school might feel from a distance. So I think when you've chosen the right school, or when your child feels that they're in the right place. So to come here and be part of that school community, which for settling down into a new location is so important.
Yeah. Nicky, you've chosen a school fairly recently, I think. Did you say? What did you look for? What were the signs that this was going to be the right environment, not just for your child, but for you as a family?
One of the things that I was most interested in walking around was looking at the children. I was listening to all the spiel, because obviously that's all very nice, but of course they're telling you all the right things. Although of course there is very different ethos in different schools. But for me, I was looking at what how did the kids look, and they had all the doors open in all the classrooms, so we could kind of earwig a little bit and just, were the kids enjoying the learning? Were they interacting with one another? Did they seem confident and happy and feel safe? So for me, that was one of the key things actually, was looking at all of that side of things. And what did a good child look like in this school? Was it a child that was quiet and compliant, which wasn't really what I personally was looking for. I was looking for that engagement and that, excitement. So for me, that was it. It was looking at the children actually, which of course is a real challenge at the moment, because you're not really going to access that in the same way. And I think that's where, if you have got any kind of networks of people who have already got children attending the school, then of course being able to hear their perspective on what it's really like to be a member of that school and a member of that wider community.
Yeah. Carl, what do you think are the signs of what the environment is actually really like?
Well, I think I'd echo the sentiment of what Nicky just said. It's about the students. It's about knowing, seeing what the students are doing, how they engage, and that is different school to school. And I think to make the right decision for your child, it's important to also understand your child's academic ability, their interests, their goals. So that when you do go and visit a school and you understand it, does it fit with your child? Because even some of the best schools and some schools that look absolutely fantastic might just not be the right fit for a particular child. So I think it comes from when you're visiting, looking at how the children interact with each other, with their teachers, and what sorts of extracurricular they engage in, and then understanding how that fits with your child.
Do you not think as a parent it's quite a thing when you have to accept that the school you would choose is not necessarily the school that is right for your child? Is that the sign of being a proper grown-up?
I had that situation, Jayne. My oldest son, it would have been, all of his friends were going to go to the local school, and he was adamant, to his absolute credit, that he wanted to go to a school out of catchment because his special dearest interest was rugby, and all of his teammates were going there. So it's like, okay, but it's a real head and heart kind of decision, and so he won the day, but it's a funny one. But he's I strongly believe that if the child has a strong desire to go somewhere, then if you can enable that to kind of happen, then there will be engaged learners, and there's a lot to be said, in my experience, for that.
And of course, if things do go wrong, this is the area you're in, Carl, is that there are education consultants who can help and advise and guide you to the next step. And also, if you don't get into the school of your first choice, if you're in the state system, for example, and you need help through the appeals process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, there are a lot of experts out there, there are a lot of people who understand the variety that is available in various independent schools. And if you're not sure, it's probably best to seek the advice of them. And that could be about schools in general, or understanding a little bit more about your child's, learning styles and things like that. As a parent, that might not be something that you fully understand. You may need to speak with an expert about.
Yeah, and that independent perspective, particularly if there are any emotional undertones to the choice of school, that can be very, very helpful, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think having that objective viewpoint is very, very useful.
So we are at the very beginning of this month of activities and events, and some of you are going to be involved as we go along. Is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to, or anything that you're going to be involved with that you think parents and other viewers are going to find especially useful? What about you, Ruth? Fiona said that no pressure on you, but you're solely responsible, it would appear, for bringing everybody in.
Well, I'm just really excited. I know a lot of, this is a busy time of year for admissions in schools and parents making big decisions, potentially life-changing decisions, and it's really important to get it right. So I think, Fiona, what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, and there's so much information listed by country, by region, and it's just so helpful. So I can't wait to kind of hear people's feedback on it, and kind of watching all the upcoming webinars, and so it is a kind of an education community, and it's it's about the future, and it's so important, especially at the moment, to kind of be connected this way. So bring it on.
Nicky, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
Well, really exciting for me is to hear more about what the community needs. So I'm working with Paul Williamson and Fiona to help us think about how we can offer further development opportunities for, be that parents or schools or leadership teams, and just really, I view it as a chance to really understand what are some of the challenges that people are facing and what are the support that they need right now.
And Alessandra, you've looked ahead at the programme, you know what's coming up in a little bit of detail. What do you think parents will find most useful?
I think they'll find it useful to be connected to so many experts, and so, all this incredible content and all the resources. That's really, really going to be, huge for them, and to have the opportunity to have a platform where to ask questions and to hear what others think about the challenges and opportunities of education at this particular time in history. It's great. So Fiona, thank you so much for providing the community, the wider community, because this is open really to everybody. Everybody who has an interest in education and schooling. So thank you for putting all of this so easily accessible to everybody.
Carl, final word on this from you. What do you think as you look at the programme that people will be especially interested in?
Yeah, I mean, as everyone said, there's some absolutely great speakers in here. There's some really, really, really great content. I think for me, the thing that I'm most looking forward to is the talk from Dr. Anisha Abraham. I think if you haven't already heard it, her TEDx talk, Demystifying Teens, is absolutely brilliant. So I'm quite excited to hear more from her.
Yeah. My daughter turns 16 in 2 weeks' time, so I'm definitely going to be looking in on that one. No party, though, obviously. Thank you very much to Alessandra, Carl, Ruth and Nicky for sharing their insights with us. All very, very interesting, and what a great start to the fair. Thank you. And Fiona, let's have some final thoughts from you, please, on what people should do next. So we hope that everybody is inspired and fired up and enthused. How can they get involved?
Well, first of all, they must register. So pass on the word to friends and colleagues and assignment population to register on Eventbrite and find that link via our website. So then you'll get the ticket and then we'll send you all the information as it comes along. And then make sure that you've got the details and the link for the particular events you want to attend. And I think one of the big ones that's coming up next week, we'll cover a lot of what we've been talking about, is about the transition of children and families. And we've been hugely lucky to bring on board Dr. Douglas Otter, who many people will know for his work with globally mobile children and families. And he's going to do a keynote for us and then introduce some of his colleagues on the SPAN board who have got all sorts of expertise, which is a really global panel of people who've got really good insights into what helps families and young people transition. And then there's some research following up from that the following week. Someone called Jayne Barron, who is going to add her new research in that area. So I think there's lots. I think there's a good way to dip into the careers and the higher education and get involved with that. So keep in touch. Look at the weekly roundups of what's been on in the week and what's coming up. Watch out for Ruth's pieces and some of our other journalists, and just keep logging into the website. And we hope to see you at some of these live events and share your views. And if you want to, please send in content. And schools, it's not too late. Just get in touch with the team. You can share your videos and virtual tours and your editorial to tell us all about your specialities.
And how, Fiona, shall they get in touch if people have got content that they want to offer?
Right. Well, they can send me an email at fiona@relocatemagazine.com and also editorial@relocatemagazine.com, which the journalists like Ruth will also pick up. And go on to the website and the homepage and look at the great International Education and Schools Fair section, where you'll get new things and you'll get links to the specific events that are on throughout the month. And of course, this is evolving. It is organic. So if you hear of a great author or something special, we can try and get it. So we're hoping to have some really exciting things on science and space, for example. So, if you've heard something that's really great, let us know about it.
Fantastic. Fiona, we are very much looking forward to all that's on offer. So browse around the website, decide what you're going to attend, and get involved. I look forward to seeing you again at various points during the month. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you to today's guests. Thank you for watching. See you again soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.